So
You would
while
tell
that was happening,
yeah.
Sudhir was diagnosed with autism. And of course, he said that the child is too young for me to put a label, Sargam. So I'm not going to give any labels to him right now.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Parenthoot. I'm your host, Neha Garg, and this is the space where we dive into the real, unfiltered stories of parenthood. Here we celebrate the wins, share the struggles, and embrace the beautifully messy journey of raising a family. Whether you're tuning in as a parent, someone who's thinking about becoming one, or just curious about the realities of family life, I'm so glad you're here. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and share it with your circle. It's how our little community grows. Now, let me introduce you to our guest this week. I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Sargam Sharma, an extraordinary woman whose journey as a parent, partner, and professional is nothing short of inspiring. Sargam is the owner and curator of Studio Champa, where she brings together a treasure trove of beautiful creations. And she's been married to her partner Nitin for 16 years, and together they are parents to two incredible boys, Abeer and Suveer. Sargam's parenting journey has been full of twists and turns, joys and challenges. What stands out most is her openness and her willingness to talk about the hard parts of motherhood, the ones we often shy away from discussing. She is here today to share her story and offer her wisdom, warmth, and authenticity. Sargam, welcome to Parenthood. It's such a joy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Neha. Thank you so much for having me here.
And let's just start with you, Sargam. If you had to describe yourself in three words or phrases that capture the essence of who you are, what would they be and why?
Oh my God. You should have sent me the questions before. I would have been prepared better. But I think if I have to describe myself in three words, uh, I think I am. Um, uh, I'm a Okay, how do I? I'm a very, very so I'm a Taurian, and my husband tells me that you are too honest, you are too blunt and honest.
Yeah,
Um, I think I'm someone who has a lot of empathy, which sometimes drains me. I mean, I'm realizing that about me now.
yeah.
So I think I am an empath, and then I'm also slightly rebellious, like. Yeah, but not rebellious in the sense that I would probably shave my head and do things
Yeah.
like that. But then I do sort of follow my own path. And there's a joke amongst our friends that Sargam will do whatever others are not doing. Like, so if everybody says that, okay, have you watched this series? She'll be like, okay, no, now I'm not interested. If you lot are watching, I'll watch something else. Or if someone says that, okay, you must go to that restaurant, try things, and I'll be like, no, no, you know what, I'm not interested. So I think I don't listen to a lot of you know I think people. So that's my little bit of rebellion there.
Yeah.
So I think yeah. So I don't know how but I think, yeah, rebellion and empathy can sort of be together, and
Of,
they
of course.
coexist also, because you also want to do things that probably others would not do. And
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's my.
And and you've shared, Sargam, that you got married at a very young age, 21 for you and 24 for Nitin.
What it is, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Can you walk us through your love story? How did you two meet? And how has your relationship evolved over the years?
Yeah, so both Nitin and my dad, I mean, both of our fathers were in Indian Forest Service, and they were very, very good friends. So, I remember initially when we had to tell people the story, we used to say it's like Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. And then my elder sister would remind me and say that it's Hum Aapke Hain Kaun with a happy ending. Please do not
Yeah.
only leave it till there, do not kill me. And I'm like, okay, it's Hum Aapke Hain Kaun with a happy ending, where the elder sister also survives. So yeah, it's that. So my both my fathers, they were friends, and they were both from Rajasthan and both in the same service. And but then their cadres were different. My father-in-law was in Maharashtra and my father was in Madhya Pradesh. um, So for many years, they did not meet because this was not the time of WhatsApp and video calls and stuff like that. Many years later, my mother-in-law thought that, okay, Dharmendra has three daughters. Maybe one of the daughter could marry my son. And then she called my dad, and then my dad said that, okay, yeah, this sounds exciting. Let's see how the children like this. And so I was accompanying my sister. I mean,
Ah,
only
yeah.
she was supposed to get married. And I remember my sister threw me under the bus. When we went to meet her, she's like, Auntie, you know what? She sings. And then my mother in law was like, okay, she turned her attention to me and she's like, really? Do you? Why don't you sing something for us? And I remember looking at my sister that, why did you do this? Like,
Yeah.
why do I have to perform? But yeah, we did that. And somehow the family thought that, okay, the elder ones though do gel along, but the younger ones are sort of like a house on fire. So we should get them also married together. And since it was the same family, same people coming, they
Yeah.
just thought that, I don't know how they thought it was okay to get very young people married together who were still finishing their education.
Yeah.
And but now that it's been 16 years, I don't think so. I would have been, uh, so in love and so happy with anybody else. Of course, I haven't explored like before. I could explore
Yeah.
the world. I was married to Nitin, so the same for him. But now I feel that it was meant to be. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm a romantic at heart, and Nitin is definitely, I call him he's the Shah Rukh Khan of ordinary people. Like,
Wow.
he's highly romantic, and his love is very demonstrative. Mine is
Yeah.
not. I sort of absorb the demonstration.
Yeah.
I say it in few words, a few things, and yeah. So it's been great, and I think also after we had children, that is when the real marriage started. I feel like,
Yeah.
before you have kids, we are living in times where it's actually wonderful. There's so much friendship between the two partners. So the real marriage starts when you have children, because that is when the marriage is put to test.
Yeah.
Children put the marriage to test. So me and Nitin joke about it. I'm like, Nitin, we have nothing to fight, but then it's always something to do with our kids, and then in our case, as we'll talk about it, it was our marriage that sort of held the load fell on it. But
Yeah.
we came out of it, I feel, wonderfully, and even more closer and tighter, realizing that nobody else could have done this. I don't think so I could have raised my children and the same kids with anybody else. I mean, that's what I feel about it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now introduce us to your boys, Abeer and Suveer. What are their personalities like? And what are they as people?
So Abeer was born in 2011. He's going to turn 14 in this July. Um, I had my children, so I got married in 21 and a half, of course, without understanding what marriage is all about. Uh, and then I also got into, both me and Nitin got into parenthood without realizing, like,
Yeah.
we were both again young parents. I was 24 when I had Abir, and I was 28 when I had Suvir. And now when I look at my cousins who are 28 or even 30, I look at them as babies. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're too young. You
Yeah.
know, they are oblivious. They're in their floaty world. And then, of course, when kids come, you do sort of have to, you immediately become the adult, even if you
Yeah.
were sort of like, you had a childlike personality, you do become slightly more mature. So Abir, when I had Abir, uh, I would really honestly say that it wasn't love at first sight. It
Yeah.
was uh, and that is because I think instantly fell into postpartum depression, is what I can now understand.
Yeah.
uh, because I was wondering, I was like, why am I not feeling like you see that in the movies where women talk about this joy and that there's nothing better. Why am I not feeling that? Why am I? And I remember distinctively that when we came back, I had a C-section. So on the third day, when I came back home, Abir was sleeping on the bed, and I was having my meal in that room. And I suddenly started crying, and I think that was my first bout of, what it looks like. Suddenly, It's very filmy, but I love cinema, so that's why I'm going to give a lot of anecdotes and examples of,
Yeah.
like, how cinematically it felt for me. Suddenly, everything started feeling very gray, very dark, and I was wondering why, where is that? Why am I feeling so nervous? Why am I feeling, this way? This is not right. This feeling is not right. And I would push towards, and the kind of person I am, like when I describe myself as an empath, I take everything as, like, I have a very strong sense of justice and duty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I have brought him into this world, there is no way I'm not going to protect him, and no way I'm not going to sort of, like, be there for my children.
Right. Right.
Even if it is draining me, I would always, always, always be there. That's how I am, I think, internally wired like that. So I remember, good 1 year of just not able to realize what was happening. I think my husband realized it sooner than me, because later on, when I was sort of coming out of that phase, is when he told me, he's like, Shan, I feel you were probably going through that.
Hmm.
And then, this is, we are talking about 2011, when therapies were not that, that you could not just straight away go into therapy. You
Yeah.
also came with a lot of baggage. But thankfully now it's all changed for us as a family. We talk openly about mental health, and then how things are important. Like, I'll tell my children that, what, beta, ma is not feeling good today.
Hmm.
I'm not. Can I take a step back? Can I be in my room? And I think Abir now understands that. He's like, okay, mama, okay, I'll be with Suveer, or I'll be with, Sue and Didi, Suveer's caretaker, and you relax. So, or he keeps asking me, how are you feeling? Are you feeling good? Why are you not feeling good? So if I have to come back to your question, which is, how Abir is, he is also an empath. He is, in fact, uh, so I think, Abir, is a child with, with a very high sense of emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
Um, he's not a child who is academically great. I would be lying if I sit here and sing tunes of, him being academically very bright. But I think going forward, his goal is going to be that he is emotionally intelligent, because
Yeah.
I see that around, that a lot of times, children are not able to understand that, and I think that is not their fault. It's parents who sort of, so I was also thrown into the world of, how parenting could be very toxic, like how
Yeah.
some parents could be, so in the name of protecting their children, they sometimes, there's no justice when they are, so when you go down, when two children are playing, they will never want to get to the bottom of it, whether the fight, who started the fight, or what happened, or let the children sort of, like how our parents were, like, our
Right.
parents used to, there was a sense of justice in them, like they would not sort of go straight away and sort of put the blame or put any trauma on the other child. But I have witnessed that very closely, where parents not asking that, what happened, and okay, it's all right, let's explain all of those things. I've seen it in sandpits, and I've seen the toxic environment, or how toxic parents could be.
Yeah.
And it could also stem from, maybe they were also themselves going through something, where their vision got colored, and they just think that their children cannot do anything wrong.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I feel it's such a tight rope to walk on, because I have a strong sense of justice. So I would always ask my child, okay, what happened? And then I see the other person not doing it. I see my child is seeing that, ma, but why is she not explaining? You are explaining it to me,
Yeah.
that this is right and wrong, but the other person is not. And I sometimes worry for him, because he has to navigate in this world where, it's going towards the dark times, where,
Yeah.
it's also that there are some people who are raising their children fabulously, with a lot of, with complete openness and complete, it's not that their children are, but I do hear that. So
Yeah.
I tell you very honestly, I'm not on any mother group. I'm not on any of those parent groups, because I feel that, no, it's not always honest. They're not giving you the right picture. They're always protecting their children. They're always, uh, they're not, sort of being honest, at the bottom of it. But yeah, if I have to talk about my son, uh, I think his gold is, or rather his character is of a person who's highly empathetic, and also that comes from being Suvir's elder brother.
Right.
He was born like that. He had that chip in him, and then that chip got sort of more and more into,
Activate.
yeah, sort of, because he was Suvir's elder brother. So so I see that, and I sometimes feel very, very proud. Both me and Nitin were uh, I think we understand education is important, but it was not, marks were never, ever, ever important to us. We always have that discussion without before an exam. There's no fretting, no not going, missing your TT class and things like that. Even before a final exam, we're like, no, please go and play. That's more important. So thankfully, there's also that dialogue. We are also, I think we're also living in times where we know that if you're great at something, you'll definitely make something for, and then there
Yeah.
are all ways of living. You don't have to be doing monetarily great to live a satisfied life. So
Yeah.
yeah, so all of that is there. So so Abir is an empath. He's a lovely child, very creative. In fact, I joke with him. He loves cinema because, of course, guy gets it from the genes.
Yeah.
Both his parents love singing, love cinema. Nitin is a great, he used to do theater in his college days. So he loves and his way of looking at cinema is also slightly different. So I joke and I say, if you don't go into National School of Drama, I'll be very surprised. You could probably become a story writer or things like that, but you never know. Children surprise us all the time.
Yeah.
So it could always become a pivot, when he reaches, because I remember I wanted to become so much, and then ultimately I became an architect, and then I'm also not practicing that. So yeah. And then now coming to Suvir, so Suvir, I had him he was 20, when I was 28, and Suvir is special needs. I don't have a paper that calls him autistic. I remember, if I have to tell you slightly in detail of how we came to know, was so when you get into, so when I was getting into parenthood, I was not a person who read books and books and books and gathered information.
Yeah.
Probably also because this was not my field of interest. I'll be very honest. I was like, okay, everybody has children, so I will also probably have kids. And I had my children. I was not, I tried following up with some app. Okay, how big the child should be now, this, that. But I think it fizzled out.
Yeah.
And I realized that now, maybe because of course I read about something else which is of more interest to me. So when Suvir was born, everything looked absolutely normal to us. He was, in fact, I used to think that God has sort of balanced it somehow, because Abir was quite a handful while growing up. Um, uh, Also, when I was talking about this empathy that other parents don't have, everybody's to themselves, it's like how earlier it was, the phrase was there, right? It takes a village to raise a child. Now the villages are disappearing, everybody has become islands, is what I have experienced. I've experienced some great people also, but it's far lesser than what I've experienced, in terms of everybody is all about their own children, their own safeguarding their own children, not teaching the children to play, and so things like that. So I remember I used to take Abir, me, and there was another mother. Two of us used to take our boys to play at the sandpit while everybody used to come back home. So we used to go at 7 o'clock in the evening when people were coming back, because it was so difficult for us to, we would get so much suggestion. And now I know that maybe there was slight shade of neurodiversity in our kids,
Right.
but of course we were ourselves unaware. So how would we make them aware?
Yeah.
Uh, and sometimes it can be very tiring to make somebody else aware of
Yeah.
what the child is going through. There's so much prejudice, which now I don't care about, but there earlier, when as a young person, I was afraid. I was like, what's happening? Why is my child not able to, play, or why is he running around? So yeah, so when Suvir was born, I remember everything. He used to eat everything. Abir was a fussy eater, so he used to eat everything. And I used to tell my mom, I was like, okay, ma, this is probably nature's way of balancing it. Here I had such a difficult time. And I think now I know that the difficulty was not with Abeer, it was with the mother, because I did not understand how to raise a child who may have difficulty in swallowing or other things. So when Suveer was about 2 years of age, uh, yeah, slightly more than two, my sister came, and by then she had started working in a kindergarten where she had a special needs child under her care, and she realized that a lot of mannerisms were matching. Suveer was hand flapping. Suveer had started tiptoeing by then. He had no eye contact. And I remember during those days, I used to cry a lot. So I
Mm,
think my body knew before my mind could sort of fathom what was happening. And
right.
one of our neighbors was a very close friend of ours. He was an orthopedic surgeon and still is a very, very dear friend. He realized that there's something wrong in their house because he saw the light sort of going away from me. And I was like, I don't know why Suvir cries so much. I don't know why is he crying. I remember once talking to my mother-in-law and Suvir was constantly crying, which now I feel so bad about. But I am now telling myself, you have to be gentle to yourself,
Yeah.
Sargam. There is no discussion about this that happens openly. Even
Right.
if somebody goes through difficulty while raising kids, everybody on social media puts that you are my world and how much joy and all of that, but nobody talks about this difficulty, that children are fussy eaters, there's so much and then that how your mental health is going to take a toll. So when he met me, he realized that okay, this is not our usual friend, what is happening? So the last 6 months before his diagnosis is when my body also started showing sign of something is wrong, something is wrong. I'd become skin and bones. I had lost a lot of weight. And so when my sister came on a break, she and the friend sort of one morning, he came, he was our next door neighbor, he came for a tea, and they both sort of broke into us very gently. He's like, you know what, Nitin and Sargam, he's like, I've taken an appointment. I think you must go and meet a developmental pediatrician
Yeah.
first. And me being my hopeful self, I was like, "ठीक है, maybe, okay, we'll go." Um, and then we went and we met him, and he just said that your child is not daft, Sargam. He's not, but he's not. So I remember he took out a pen and he said, "See, if the pen costs 10, this child is not going to be able to sell it for 100 rupees. He will sell it for 10 rupees. Take it like that. So your child may have limited communication. He may not be able to have all the other things that as humans when we grow up we do, which is socialize and talk extra and all of that. That may be limited. But
Yeah.
then he also tried. I remember it was a very beautiful thing that he said. He said that he's a visual learner. He's like when he came, he saw everything and now he knows where the painting is, what's on my table, something that you would have missed out. But
Yeah.
he has seen that. That's my observation of your son. But I remember when he said that, yeah, there could be some challenges. I started crying. And then my crying started from there. It had begun before, but then I think in the last so many years, I've cried a river. If I would have
Yeah.
yeah, I've cried oceans. So yeah, so we came back. It was 25th of December 2017, and
Wow.
my sister was.
Remember.
I how can I forget? Because that was the day our life completely changed. Before that, even though there were difficult days, we were able to sort of pass those through and sort of come back to our normal self. This was as if life had knocked us down and was holding us down, that okay, now I will see how do you get up. And I feel that again, coming back to cinema, I feel that many 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 times when it used to feel that if life is an entity, some days it felt as if it was sitting on top of me and throwing punches, and like a sadistic figure key, now you get up and I'll see. And I have to pat on my back and my partner's back that we every time would get up, somehow walk few miles, and again some information that would come, because this was also the time that was coincided with Abir's diagnosis of Bett's. So Bett's is benign Rolandic epilepsy. So when he was 4, when we were coming back for Suvir's delivery, I was coming from Hyderabad. We were moving from Hyderabad. We were moving to Ahmedabad. In between, there was going to be a pit stop at Nagpur, and I was going to have Suvir there with
Uh-huh.
my old gynecologist. So on the way in the train, he had his first epileptic attack, and he had convulsions in the train, and we had no idea. Now again, now when I see some videos, like, which come on social media, I see that there is again such there is no awareness about how to deal with somebody's convulsing. People start doing those old things, like in the villages, how they would be like chappal sunghaye, like, do things like that, rub the feet. Nothing like that works. I remember when we spoke to our neurologist, he said you have to clear the airway, you have to make sure that the person is on the side, and you just sort of extend the child's airway so that there's air going in his airway. Make sure there's not too much bheed, but that's what happens when somebody is having a convulsion in public. And you're not supposed to feed them any damn thing, it could choke them.
Yeah.
So, and then you are also supposed to just make sure that they're not biting on their
I
tongue.
think. Yeah.
Why again is because the blood can again choke them. So I recently saw a video on social media. I don't know how I saw that, where the child, well, the person was sort of sitting upright, and the person, people are trying to, and that is what when Abeer was having that. So I remember the scene. I was sleeping on the side berth, and I just wake up because I hear my husband sort of shrieking at top of his lungs, and I see these boys jumping down, and and then one, like two of them are rubbing his feet. My husband has his head on his lap, and he's screaming. He's like, "Koi doctor ko bulao, call the doctor." He looks at me because by that time I had woken up. He's like, "Shan, call the doctor, call the doctor." And I see my child is shaking, and he's turning towards one side, and there's someone who's saying, "Pani laiye, pani laiye." We had no idea what to do at that time, and I'm just sort of, I'm just trying to make sense of this, because nobody gets into parenthood thinking what could go, like, wrong, or something could go wrong. We always think that, oh, poor them,
Yeah.
their child has this difficulty, how are they going to, you never ever think that it's going to happen to you. You are going to be the recipients of, like, or your child could have difficulty. So I remember I was feeling, I was like, okay, where do I go? And here, and also I was big. I was 8 months, like I'd completed 8 months and had just entered into my ninth month, the last month of my pregnancy. And I remember a woman holding my hand. She's like, "You are not going anywhere. You will get into labor right now. Breathe with me." So she sat. She made me. She made me sit on one of the sideboards. She's like, "Your," and I said, "My child, my child." Somehow I was breathless, and she's like, "Your child will be all right. You need to make sure you don't get into labor. That the train is in the middle of nowhere. We
Yeah.
won't be able to help you. Understand that." So she literally shaked me back into consciousness. She's like, "You have to relax now. So you breathe with me, okay? Breathe in, breathe out." She made me do that.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it was very kind of her. And in all of that, she's still a hazy figure. I many times try to remember her face, but I can't, because everything had become slow motion with ringing ear, ringing in my
Yeah.
ears. So, but I do remember her words saying that you need to breathe. You need to not move from here for the next 5 minutes, because people are also gathering, and they could not see my tummy, so they
Yeah.
were sort of like, hitting me and pushing me back, and all of that, the filmy scene that we see, that was what was happening in that compartment. And then I called my sister because her daughter had febrile convulsions. Now febrile convulsions happen when your child is you have, it can happen when the child is sort of they have fever. It's
Yeah.
fever induced convulsions. But in Abir's case, in benign rolandic epilepsy, it happens in sleep. So you cannot know when it can happen, and of course that was the first time. So I called my sister, and my sister is like, "Shan, it can," because she assumed it's febrile convulsion. So she's like, "Sargam, you don't have any SOS medicine with you. Nagpur is just 45 minutes, but in 45 minutes it can happen again. So be prepared for that." And I remember Abir, of course, I could not take him in my lap. My 4-year-old son, Nitin, took him. And I could see both of us were in in a state of helplessness, that how do we help our child? We have no idea what the first aid should be. Whatever we did we do it right? Because he opened his eyes and he just went back to sleep, because your brain gets very tired with that extra electrical activity. And he went to sleep, and I was holding his hand, and I was like, people were looking at us. I could see so many people looking at us, that here's that young couple who has their son like completely behosh in there, and then mother is expecting. It was, oh my god, it was it was, but it was also a scene which I sometimes go back just to just to say that, oh my, how much have we how
Lord.
far have we
Yeah.
come, from that day.
Yeah.
I remember we got down at the train station. My sister and my brother-in-law were there to receive us. They immediately took Abeer in their godi, and my sister is like, "Shan, now you relax, okay?" And I also had like a sigh of relief. But then we had to get an MRI done to see if there was no damage in the brain and things like that. And then got the good news, and our pediatrician said that okay, it was a one-off incident which will not happen again. So we came back home very happy, thinking it's a one off incident. But then, of course, it was not that. It happened again. And but by then, Suvir was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, it happened in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock. Suvir was barely 6 months old then. We rushed Abir, and we had to, and that time, because it was happening for the second time, and on the left side had completely got slightly impacted, like it was not
Yeah.
fully how it should be. The pediatrician put us in an ICU. Now he's barely like 5 years old, so I had to sleep with him, and so we had to be so I called up a friend mine. I said, my child is very young, can you feed him, can you come and sleep next to him? So she came, she left her child, and her husband dropped her. And I told her. Thankfully, I was not feeding. He was formula fed, so I taught her that okay, at night he may take 2 scoops of the formula and then this much water. And then me and Nitin was sitting outside, I was sleeping next to him in the ICU, waiting that okay, no episode should happen again. And then the next day, a very lovely neurologist, a pediatric neurologist, came, and then he told us. He said that he has benign Rolandic epilepsy. It's more common in boys. It starts from somewhere around the age of 6, and then it sort of fizzles out by 12 and 13. Also, because that's when your brain is growing. So he said that the good news is that it's not permanent, but the bad news is that you have to be on watch for the next 6 years. And we were, but in Abir's case, it started at the age of 4.
Yeah.
The reason I'm giving these details is because this could help somebody else who's
Yeah.
listening to this. And then he taught us. He's like, do not put any water, do not put anything in his mouth. You're supposed to keep the mouth open, like make sure that the airway. So we would always do that, because after that, there were 5 6 times that he had convulsions. We were also given a nasal spray, but the nasal spray had to be used only after 2 minutes of. So we had to time the conversion, which is bizarre, because as parents, you are like, I have the SOS, but I am not allowed to use it, because he's like, if it stops on its own, we do not want to give a muscle relaxant to the brain,
Right.
because everything comes with its own, effects.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so Nitin would be holding him, I would be holding the nasal spray in my hand, and we'll be timing it and just waiting for the 2 minutes to get over so that I could help, and things like that. Yeah. So um yeah, so
You would
while
tell
that was
me.
happening,
Yeah.
Sudhir was diagnosed with autism. And of course, he said that the child is too young for me to put a label, Sargam. So I'm not going to give any labels to him right now. But I do see that there is certain things, certain milestones that he's not met yet. Um, I also feel that there was some bit of regression, because I when so regression is a word that it's there in our universe of special needs parents, especially in autism. So regression is like, I many times, when they say count your blessings, I sometimes think about all those parents whose children were talking, they were verbal, and then they regressed and they stopped. talking. I've met many parents like that. So I sometimes think of what heartbreak must they have gone through, because my child never spoke. So I have not heard him talk and then not heard him talk. But yeah, this is also something that happens where regression. So I do sometimes feel that there was some bit of regression in terms of eye contact, because there are some old pictures of Suvir where he is looking into the camera, where he's about 1 years of age and where he's walking nicely, where his motor control was much better. So he was meeting all the all the milestones till a
Yeah.
certain age, and then the depletion started. So yeah, so the doctor told us this. We came back home with that diagnosis. I remember going into a room, and my sister followed me, of course. And Nitin was putting up a brave. So he was crying in another room. I was crying in another room. The children started playing, of course, completely oblivious to what has had happened to Abeer. Also was oblivious to
Yeah.
uh, what we came back with. What news did we come back with? And because it was Christmas, there was a carnival that we were all supposed to go, so we did go there. But again, everything started appearing gray to me, like as if I always describe it as if I was hit by an asteroid. uh, Suddenly the earth sort of felt as if it had just moved from under my feet, because I just thought, how am I going to do this? I'm not the most creative parent, I'm not the most uh, intuit parent. How am I going to do this? And yeah, and but we I think it unfolded slightly later, like a lot of things unfolded later that time. So with autism, so there is also I would also like to talk about a difference between having a meltdown and having a tantrum.
Right.
There's a huge difference between these two words, because after that diagnosis, we came to know that whatever Suvir was doing was a meltdown, and the meltdown happened because he was not able to regulate
Right.
his own nervous system.
Right.
Uh, so we also took him to Mumbai. I remember I met a neurologist who was very blunt. So as gentle as this person was, this developmental pediatrician in Ahmedabad was, the neurologist in Bombay was extremely blunt and honest. And I don't blame her, maybe because parents probably are not able to sort of accept it. So she was very, very blunt and coming out from her cabin, because I thought that, I still went with that hope where I thought that they would say that, oh, no, no, he's misdiagnosed it. It's not the case. I think also because Abir spoke very late. Abir spoke when he was 3.5 years old. So I thought, okay, maybe Suvir will also start speaking
Yeah.
late.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we went there, and then occupational therapist told us that, Mama, I think he's somewhere in between being an autistic person and being a neurotypical person,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of things that are not sort of falling straight into that. He's doing certain things which, if he was autistic, he would not do. And then, of course, there are certain things that, so she said that he may also have something called as sensory processing disorder, SPD, which I feel that, yeah, Suvir has a lot of sensory issues. But he does have him. So both my children have emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
and lot of autistic people have a great depth of emotional intelligence. They have a lot of things which are heightened in them, like um, I think that's why if you see Einstein and all of the, a lot of these neurodiverse people had something which was greater than neurotypical people.
Yeah.
And that's why they say that, okay, you try to take the child into that direction, because there he could be the best in the world in that.
Yeah.
But the journey to be, to reach there is, of course, treacherous.
Yeah.
It's not easy. So yeah, after Sui's diagnosis, Suvir had meltdowns. Traveling with him became difficult. Something I would also like to sort of, like, through your podcast, if there is a person who's not parent, or who sort of is just interested, like you said, into listening, I also feel that people need to have a lot of empathy towards, these crying kids in the aircraft.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, they just sort of label them as, again, as tantrums. They just think that, oh God, why are the parents not able to shush their child? I've also seen uh, no, I've noticed these nuances. I remember once I was traveling, I was not with my children. There was one mother, she was traveling with a 2-year-old, and the child was crying, crying, crying. And the mother was loudly sort of trying to pacify.
Yeah,
I know, beta, I know you are having difficulty. She was actually loudly saying it for the other passengers to not make a fuss.
yeah,
I could feel that, like that was a defense mechanism, that she was saying that please do not say anything. I am already at my wits end. Like, do
yeah,
not make life difficult for me. And because I see that joke around, that people are like, oh, mall mein, chillate hue bacche, or in an aircraft, I had like wailing kids. Why do people come out with their children? But we need to go out. I need to take Suvir and show him the world. He cannot be indoors all the time. So
right.
I remember have feeling great deal of anxiety whenever we would be traveling somewhere. We had of course reduced our travels, in the initial years of his diagnosis, because we were also not equipped. We did not know what to do when this happens. Gradually we understood. Like, I remember Suvir used to have this thing of wanting to stretch his legs, and then aage, whoever would be sitting would feel difficulty. So then we would of course apologize profusely to them, and we would be like, we are really really sorry. Some people were godsend. They would be like, it's okay, because I think they were highly emotionally intelligent people. They could understand that the child, there is a difficulty in the like, the parents are
Yeah,
already finding it difficult. But some people, oh my god, they would be making faces, or they would be ready to like pick up a fight. I mean, no parent wants their child crying. Yeah, we also want to enjoy the journey. We also want to enjoy the bad
yeah,
aircraft food, and enjoy looking at the clouds. But here we are, sort of keeping our fingers crossed that no meltdown happens. Also, when people and children with special sensory processing disorder, putting them in a very tight, close environment can be difficult.
yeah,
But sometimes things are not in our hand. We need to travel for something, maybe for an emergency or medical emergency, or maybe because we just want to show
yeah,
our child, give him the opportunity to see how the world looks like. I remember we also started taking trains, because trains were better, but
yeah.
then the train journeys were longer, so we
Oh,
could not go to we could only take like an overnight train, because I remember that mornings it would again be very difficult to sort of like restrict his movement, and so yeah, initially there were a lot of meltdowns, a lot of pulling of the hair and things like that, and self harm and stuff like that. And I think I remember once. So when his diagnosis came, Abir was also going through that.
yeah,
The condition. So in that condition, we were told that we would have to observe our child for the first 1 hour of his sleep, because that's when you go from a lighter sleep to a deep, RAM, deep sleep. So the neurologist was like, you just need to watch him. He's like, he said it very nonchalantly. He's like, see, mothers have that instinct where you would know if he's going to have a convulsion. And then I told him, I said, but doctor, I'm a tired mother. There could be a very high chance that I may just slip into sleep out of exhaustion, because
yeah,
my younger child is autistic. The whole day I'm running behind him. I'm emotionally exhausted by the end of the night. Please give me an SOS and tell me what needs to be done. He said, okay, in that case, you need to watch him for an hour. I said, okay, we are ready to do that. So for I think couple of years, me and Nitin, one of us used to be present next to Abir. And I remember sometimes he would just twitch a little, and I would rush towards towards
correct.
the nasal spray. And then, and my husband would be like, he could see his wife losing her mind, and he would be like, it's okay, it's relax. You need to relax. Nothing is happening. He's just turning on his back. Nothing is happening. And I would like, be just watching. So I remember initially, when he used to come out of the conversion, he used to see my face, where my face would probably tell him that like the horror would be on it. He
Yeah,
would look at us, he would start crying. What happened? And then so later I had to train myself to keep my face normal,
yeah,
like and not to act like a mad woman, because yeah. So I remember Suvir had that time. some issue where he could not sleep for more than 2.5 hours. He used to get up in the middle of the night and he would start crying at top of his voice. And we were afraid that if he would wake Abir up, then the cycle
And
of 1 hour of watching would begin again.
right.
And so there was a phase where it was humanly impossible. It was so difficult. We both had, and I knew my husband had to go to his office. He would have to go to work. I could still catch a nap, though catching a nap used to always result in something that would have gone wrong. Like
Yeah.
in our house for many many years, silence was like dangerous,
Yeah.
because something would be like, it's either the plants, or he's eaten mitti, or he's eaten a crayon that he's found, or something or the other would have gone wrong. So yeah, so I remember, and I also remember, once it was winters, again, no white noise. You would not put on your fans. And Suvir during those days used to cry,
Yeah.
profusely cry.
Yeah.
And the next day, our upstairs neighbor, she came down, and she came in the evening at 5. And I don't know what had happened. Suvir was in my godi crying. Abir was on my legs, like, wrapped his
Yeah.
head. He was crying. I was on the verge of crying, and the bell rings, and the help sort of goes and opens the door. And this auntie walks in, and she's like, can you please keep your noises down? My son comes back from a late night shift. He's not able to sleep because your child is crying. And I was like, I mean, I was so crestfallen, disappointed in, people and her and society. I was like, of course, see, I also have the empathy to, I understand that it must be difficult, but we could not help it. Of course, we would try to shush him, put him back to sleep, because even we wanted to sleep, but it was difficult for the child to go back to sleep. Once if he was up, it used to be very very difficult, the entire. And with meltdowns, what happens is, if it starts, it has its own life. It will stop when it will stop.
Right.
You cannot, all you can do is just make sure that the child is not uh, self-harming, or the child is not harming the other person. So yeah, so all of that has happened. We've gone through all of that. But now, if I talk about Suveer, Suveer is a gifted child. I think I call him my guru, not because of I don't want to glorify my children, but my children have taught me all that nobody else could have taught me. Like, they've taught me a great deal of empathy. They've taught me so much patience, and they've also taught me, I think I have perseverance, as a word. I feel that I could experience, or could uh, sort of cultivate that, because these things came into my life. Had
Yeah.
it been very, me and Nitin, we talk many times about it, that had these difficulty not come into our life, we would have been very different people. Maybe we also would have been those people who talk about crying kids in the aircraft, and people don't take care of their children, why don't they, all of those things, like,
Yeah.
the normal things that normally people who are completely oblivious and unaware talk about. And Suvir is, again, like, uh, Abir, he also, he's pre-verbal now. He's now started talking. Another thing about autism is that, it teaches you to be grateful for the smallest of things,
Yeah.
which I feel is, it is difficult. I mean, I would not, I mean, I'll say, okay, if you don't learn, it's great. But I think how it made us different is, like, we started um, rejoicing smallest of things. Like, I remember once I was teaching him something. I was teaching him colors, and I said white, and so we said white, and the whole celebration for that day was about the word white.
Yeah.
So, things like that, or him picking up a spoon and eating on himself, like, by himself. Like,
Yeah.
the just yesterday I had taken him to uh, to get his specs checked and changed. And I remember that was the first time in his 9 years that he removed his old specs, and he took us, like, I was talking to the optician, and he just picked up a chashma and he put it on, and he was looking
Wow.
in the mirror. And me and Suvir's caretaker, Pooja Didi, we both were looking at each other, and we had that big smile, as if Everest hum logon ne, we've both sort of are on the summit of Everest. So it also, I think, makes you rejoice these things, which I think, if my children were, if Suvir was neurotypical, we would have not enjoyed that. So yeah, so that's a little bit about. But both of them are absolutely lovely kids. I think they are both special in their own ways. They're not special because of their achievements, but I think they're special because they're very close to, I think, humanness, like very close to, like a lot of this emotional intelligence, like crying when you see someone going through difficulty and things like that. Yeah, so
And Sargam, I'm first of all, thank you so much for sharing, such heartfelt moments from your life. But tell me, I'm very curious to know, as a parent of a neurodivergent child, what has been some of the most profound moments of connection or understanding with Suvir that stands out in your heart?
I'll try to say this without crying, but I will. There are two things that I'll never forget, two incidents. I think one of them is, so I, after all of this that happened, my mental health, of course, went for like a toss, like it was out of the window. I don't know if I can use the word, but I was completely at the end of. There was a phase when I was in the end, at the end of. I just thought it's too difficult. I cannot do it. I
Yeah,
think it's better not to exist than to do this, because it was getting very very difficult. And sometimes I also feel that, see, I was feeling this amount of helplessness, even though I had the most supportive partner and family. I do not know how do those people do who do not have, lovely people around them. But so I always think of those mothers, and I'm like, oh my God, they are the real warriors, because I still had a safety net which was there for me to completely jump and free fall, in terms of my sisters, my husband, my in-laws, my friends. But yeah, so I remember this is about, I think, 2 years back, or I
mm,
think 3 years back. uh, I was going through a patch of really really difficult time, um, and I was crying, and there was nobody in the house.
yeah,
Nitin had to go to work. uh, there was no help that was around. Abeer was also not in the house, so I knew that I had to also be there for Suvir, make sure that he doesn't do something, because they don't also understand danger. So
yeah,
I said I have to. So I took him in the room and I locked the room from inside. Um, and I put on his music because he loves music. So I
yeah,
thought, if there is music going on, he was sitting on my lap, not facing me,
yeah.
and I was crying, so that he could listen to the music and not look at me, but I could get, and I could
That
keep
kind of,
crying,
yeah,
so that I could just let all of that was brewing inside of me out, because I could not leave him alone. And there came a point where I don't know what he sensed. He just turned back and he looked at me. And I realized that he understood that Ma is having a difficult time.
yeah,
And he just turned back. After 2 minutes, again, he turned back and he looked at me. And then I just thought, okay, no, I have to come out of this. Like, it's all good. He understands. My child is inside there somewhere. He is getting it, that, and that was also sort of, so in the times of despair, I think that was sort of like a hope, like a spike in that,
yeah,
that getting it, like he's not oblivious to emotions, like, he's not, he's somewhere there inside
yeah,
this little body.
yeah,
And then I stopped and I remember hugging him tight, because he was right there, and I hugged him tight, and I just stopped crying instantly.
mm,
And second was, during this time only, this was a phase, I don't know why, I think it was one of the toughest, where I I was feeding Suvir and he was not eating. And I got so exhausted, emotionally and mentally. And Abir, who was barely, I think 7 or 8, was watching me. So I again knew I could not cry because he's watching me. I just told him, I said, Beta, I'm just coming in 2 minutes. Can you watch Suvir for me? He said, okay, ma. I went in the room, I locked the room, and I just started crying. So I think that 2 minutes became probably 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes.
yeah,
When I opened the door and I opened And I came out, I saw Abeer was feeding Suveer.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so it was, so like, he stepped into my shoes
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my God. And so the no words were exchanged, but a 8-year-old child understood that, you know, and I, like I said, my, internally in me, sense of duty is so high that I just never, ever, ever wanted to ask Abeer for any help. You know, I think wherever he has helped has mostly been, I have asked him for help when I'm at my wits end, when I know I need to pull myself out of the situation, like,
Yeah.
I for my own good and for my children's good, I need to be away from this situation. So when I came out and I saw Abir feeding Suveer dal chawal, I was like, it was, I don't know what it did. Like, I'm not able to sort of find words and articulate it. But these two incidents I'll never, ever, ever forget. And yeah, so yeah, so that's if I have to talk about connection, I yeah, there's another one which is very lovely and very, very, I wrote about, I made a Instagram sort of note also when I used to try to write. I remember once Abir had gone down to play and I was up with Suveer in the apartment. I came down and Abir came running to me and he said, Mama, I got you something. And I said, what? So there was a lady who had put out an exhibition, sort of a thing was happening, like how it happens under the
Yeah.
building, right? You can put out a stall. So Abir had observed that Ma likes earrings. See, I'm wearing earrings today
Yeah.
also. So I love wearing earrings. I mean, that's the piece of jewelry that I would always find me wearing. He went. So I came down and Nitin also came back from his office. So every time he used to first find us niche because
Yeah.
I was like that fountain who you would always find downstairs because I knew it was important for my children to play.
Yeah.
So he took his dad in the side and he said, Mom, Papa, come with me, come on. And I see both of them rushing towards uh, one hall. And he came back and Nitin had a wide smile on his face. And I was like, what's happening? What are you guys doing? And Abhi came and he said, Ma, this is for you. And I said,
Oh,
what is this? And there were those two little tiny earrings that he got. And then Nitin told me, he's like, Shan, you know what he did? He went, there was a lady who had, so all the children were playing. He
yeah.
saw that there is a lady who's put up this stall for a day which has these earrings. He picked out two earrings, one which he selected, one which he asked Nitin to select. And he told that lady, he's like, Auntie, can I pay you later? So she said, yeah, that's okay, I'll keep these aside. And he's like, she asked him, she's like, she was very curious that who are you buying
Yeah.
this for?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm buying this for my mama because she works a lot.
Oh,
So, so he had seen me, like, he'd
yeah.
seen me physically doing a lot of work. So that's the thing, like that's his goal. He has that empathy to realize that his mother works so much that I need to, like, make her day. So he went and he bought those earrings for me. I still have those and I wear them and I take them out. They're more precious to me than anything
Yeah.
else. So yeah, so yeah, they so it's not all, of course, it's not always dark and bad. I have had my own fair share of lovely times with my children where I'm like, okay, like, this is so lovely. This is so beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, when there's someone like that.
Yeah.
Um, I also, I think I'd written one post about this where I think we used to keep water bottles next to Abir's nightstand, and Abir and Suveer there was a phase where they used to sleep together.
Uh-huh.
And I think Abir must have, sort of come onto, the edge of the bed, and that water bottle fell. So I rushed to see, and I see him holding Suveer's hand in his sleep.
Deep
Yeah, so like, he had that, I don't know how
thing.
he had that thing where
Yeah.
he just thought that something's going wrong. I have to hold my younger brother's hand.
Yeah.
So I used to always write that, Abir is the hero of Suveer's story.
Oh,
It's not us, but it's his brother who has completely accepted him like the way he is. Of
Yeah.
course, there were like, there were initially, there were always like, because Suvir used to sometimes pull his hair also and, break
Yeah.
his toys and all of that. But when he grew up, he understood that no, I mean, he was not doing it intentionally. He was himself going through a difficult time. So that's what I feel, that Suvir has taught all three of us something that, I don't think so we would have learned it via regular life.
Do you
So
also think, Sargam, that Abir has grown up before his time because he's living with Subir as his younger brother?
Absolutely. That's also something that I sometimes feel bad about. Like, uh, even though he's a very cheeky fellow, he's funny. He's
Yeah.
gone on his dad. Uh, they like to mimic me, and so if you meet Abir, he's known to be this. He will be talking to the daddies of his friends, and sort of joking around with them. And like his teachers tell me that but I do know internally somewhere he has sort of like he's grown up before his age, even though we try not to load him with anything, but he's living with us, so he sees the struggles. I mean, we can't uh, he cannot be in another room and not see Suvir's meltdown. There used to be many times when Suvir would be having a meltdown and he would ask me to sort of step away, and he would try to sort of come in.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he would say, "Mama, you know what? No, मुझसे चुप होगा, आपसे नहीं." He'll listen to me. So he has definitely also, see, uh, I grew up with my sisters, and I knew the kind of mischief that we used to do. Abir is sort of till now at least practically growing up as a single child, because
Yeah.
uh, the back and forth that happens in siblings, it's yet to happen. We are very hopeful that it's going to happen, for sure. It started happening now, so we know that at some point in time there's going to be that. But Abir doesn't, like how siblings are, right? We
Yeah.
get into fist fights with our siblings and pillow fights and all of that. That doesn't happen. Abir knows that he can't sort of take something of Suvir and run away.
Yeah.
Uh, all of that naughtiness, that kind of camaraderie that happens. So Abir is always like a protector to Suvir. So
Yes.
he cannot tease him, or he cannot. So he teases, of course, he teases Pooja Didi, who's
Yeah.
Suvir's caretaker. So he teases her, and I can always hear a banter in the background between Pooja Didi and Suvir, because Pooja is Suvir's protector. So Pooja will be
Yeah.
like, no, 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 I'm getting this vegetable made because Bhaiya likes, Suvir likes. And
Yeah.
Abhi will be like, yeah, yeah, you to will do only what Bhaiya likes. And all of that
Yeah.
banter. So I see that he does that with Pooja. He'll be like, Didi, movie dekhenge kya? So the movie that Abeer and Suveer would watch, that he does with while Suveer is watching his iPad and watching something completely different. Like,
Yeah.
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 But he definitely has, we tried protecting him from that, but he's not untouched by that reality.
Yeah. And you have spoken so much about her. So tell us about Pooja Didi also.
Oh, I have to. I don't think so. It'll be fair if I don't talk about Pooja. So, I think when I was emotionally going through a tough time was also because I was physically, getting exhausted. And Neha, I was since a young child. I remember my mom used to say that, be financially independent, and so that nobody tells you what to do and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So we are three sisters, and I think I was always the one who would say that, what, and we were three sisters in India, so there were always a question to my, like, when people like my when my family would be introducing, they'll be like, oh, koi beta nahi hai aapka, and things like
Mm.
that. The
Yeah.
typical people. And my dad used to always say, no, I have three daughters, I don't think so we need a son. But I knew what they meant. Like,
Yeah.
they thought that the PETA could sort of come and save them. I don't know what. Uh,
Yeah.
so I internally I was also an angry child because of that.
Yeah.
My rebellion came from that. So I used to tell my mom, you know what, ma, I'm not going to get married. I'm not. So sometimes I make fun of me. I was like, Mama, do you remember? I used to be like, I don't want to get married, and
Yeah.
uh, stuff like that. So, so I always wanted to work. But
Yeah.
when I had my children, I stopped working. When I had, it's funny. because when I had the day I came to know that I'm having a beer, I wrote to my boss saying that, sir, I don't think so I can come, because I used to travel by an auto, and I was, I thought something would happen to the child.
Yeah.
And thank my boss was also a lovely, lovely man. We tried working something out where I could work from home. But as an architect, you have to go on the sites and you have to climb up on the scaffolding and things like that. I was young, and now I tell people, please do not leave your work.
Yeah.
Work is important for your own happiness. It's important because the kind of joy that you get from your work or from anything that you like doing other than being a mother, that is going to fuel this happiness also.
Yes.
Suppose there's no happiness, suppose if today in the world of motherhood you are having a difficult time, then at least in the other world you can sort of enjoy, which I learned later.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I always wanted to work. So I thought, okay, when I'll have my, when Suvir when he was born, I thought, okay, when he'll be 2 years of age, I will work, I'll start working. And then came this diagnosis.
Yeah.
And then again, I was always sure that I'm not going to leave my children to, with anybody, because of all the things that you hear and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I was only taking care. And also, I think, it's very difficult to take care of special needs children. As parents, sometimes when we get tired, expecting it from somebody, that kind of selflessness is not fair.
Yeah.
Uh, so then, 3 years back, it's going to be 4 now in May. Pooja Didi came into our lives, and she came, of course, to just support us with the other stuff. Like she came to
Yeah.
support us with the household chores, and so suppose if I have to, we thought that if there would be one person, if I have to go and use the washroom, there could be someone who could be watching Suvir. So stuff like that. But life had other plans, and Pooja has a very special bond with Suvir, and Suvir also loves her. I think in Suvir's hierarchy, Pooja comes before us. So
Wow.
yeah, so I think they both have a very, very special connection. So every year she goes for 20 days to her village, which is in Chhattisgarh. And those 20 days, I then, again take the role of primary caretaker. And
Yeah.
Pooja has taken the role of primary caretaker 2 years back from me. And I have to say that I can work she's the one who's shouldering my career also, I
Yeah.
cannot work if Pooja Didi is not around, because Suvir doesn't go to a school. He needs a person always with him right now. I'm sure in the future it's going to change very soon, but till the time he's fully independent, he needs either Pooja, or he needs me, or he needs Nitin, or someone from the family. So other than Pooja, I do not trust anybody, with
Yeah.
Suvir. So so yeah, so Pooja is a godsend. I think somewhere life could see that. I think it's taken enough tests, and it wanted to sort of send me a relief. So yeah, so she came, and first 2 years was just observing, and then I saw that how comfortable Suvir was with her, and how driven she was, in this with us. Like she was also, like she had also rolled up her sleeves, and she was also into it, into the thick, wading through these choppy waters with us.
Yeah.
So then I thought that, can I do something of my own? And that's when I thought of, getting back on my feet and working. And I have to tell you that I have to mention this, that my children are now getting a much happier mother. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think Nitin, thankfully, is again emotionally so intelligent that he understood that, okay, if not now, in 10 years' time, I'll get my wife back. But to my children, they did not have to wait for a long, long time. They already now are getting a mother who's very happy, who's very excited for life. I remember there was a time when the excitement for life had completely gone out of,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so Puja is very special, and now we go as a team of five. Like so, wherever we travel, it's like I say that I have three children. I have and yeah, the way Pooja and Abeer has their banters, it just seems like they are siblings actually,
Yeah.
and yeah. So,
Sounds like a fun little unit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a fun little unit now. I always say that it's like, five of us. We all go as a unit. We all go as, so we recently started going and watching movies, uh, he watched a movie with us, so he was sitting in between me and Pooja. And yeah, and it was a big achievement for us that he went and he watched a movie, because as
Right.
a family we love doing that, as you know, because we
Yeah.
love cinema, Abir, me and Nitin. And so we loves music, so we have to go for, we can go for any movie where beach mein there are songs that will come. So
Yeah.
that is what will hook him, like, you know, keep him seated.
Yeah.
And thankfully the sensory part is also, he's able to manage it much better, you know. So as I had heard this, that some parents with their experience had told this, that, you know, when children grow up, they are able to manage, or they are able to sort of, like, you know, keep their central nervous system better, you know, channelized better.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see, I see that with Suvir now.
Yeah.
Now meltdowns, when they happen, we are able to now guess also that, you know, what could be the reason.
Uh-huh.
And if I have to talk about emotional intelligence, I remember just 2 3 days back we were sitting with our friends, and we were talking about a third friend who was going through a very tough time, and she met with an accident. Suvir was next to us, and, you know, sometimes we do forget that he understands everything, even if he's not
Yeah.
speaking to us, he understands everything. And I was talking about my friend, and suddenly Suvir, who was watching his iPad, started crying, and like he was just holding his hands and he started crying. And then Nitin had to tell him that, beta, she's all right. She's coming back home. She's absolutely all right. We were talking about something old, and, you know, now she's
Yeah.
completely. And that's what made him completely calm down. So, yeah, all of that is
Yeah.
also happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I want you to do a little bit of stargazing, Sargam. If you could create a message in the bottle for Abeer and Suveer that they could open, say, 20 years from now, what would you want to know about, what the kind of mother you've tried to be and the love you have for them?
Um, okay, this is going to make me very emotional. Like, I'm just trying not to, because I also have this internal fight constantly with me that, you know, was I a good mother?
Mm-hmm.
Between having, because I always say that the mother in me and the girl in me are constantly at loggerheads, like, you know, because the girl in me feels that, you know, that the motherhood took a huge toll on me. And then the mother in me thinks that it's okay now, you know, there's it's a long life, I can start living my life later. I'm not saying that once you become a mother you don't live your life, but my situation was very, there was an anomaly in this, like.
Yeah.
So I can, if 20 years later, if they would be sort of opening a bottle, and if they would be reading a message from me, I would just say that I hope that, you know, that I loved you from the bottom of my heart, and I, uh, that the joy that you gave me, was immense, was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely immense. And the feelings that I feel for both of them, uh, it's just, I don't think so I can articulate it better, like, you know, there are, because what is it, I mean, it cannot, it's more than selflessness. It cannot be selflessness only to be going through what I went through for my children, as a human, not as a mother, but as a human also. um, so I hope that, I really hope that, you know, that I protected them, you know,
Yeah.
that I did a decent job at that. I don't think so I'll say I did a great job at that, because I'm a human. I've had my own faulty days, but I hope that, you know, the faulty days were lesser, and the happier and the great days were more in their memory.
Yeah.
And, but then I am aware that I have also made mistakes, you know, so I know that, uh, that as a mother or as a parent, um, I should have known better, but as a human, it was impossible, like, you know, for me to know better. But I really hope that, I say that to my husband, you know. I
Yeah.
remember, like, going through one rough patch one morning. I told him, I said, "What's the point of this, Nitin? Why is it so difficult for me? What is the point of this? Like, you know, why was this handed to me?" And I told him that. I said, maybe I will see the bigger picture few years, like a few decades from now, and then I will look back and I'll say, okay, for this happened, like, you know.
Yeah.
uh, uh, so yeah, so I think, I really hope that, and I try to tell it from with my own way, but I hope that yeah, that, and I sometimes say that, I hope that the kind of boys they are, that their heart doesn't get broken, but then the
Hmm.
world that we are living in, it's difficult. uh,
Yeah.
you do have to, and we just as parents have to come in the second seat and
Yes.
just watch them take that walk into the world on their own.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I hope that they're kind people, that they're wonderful, wonderful people to be around.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Sargam, you took us to the future. Now take us to the past. If you were to sit across your pre-parent self and you could tell her anything, something, what would you say?
Um, on a bad day, on a really, really bad day in the past, I used to say that if there was a time machine, maybe I would not have chosen motherhood for me, because I say that with a lot of candor, that motherhood broke me. Like, it literally broke me. I was also, it broke me because nobody used to talk about the other side of motherhood, like, this side of motherhood, where the minute you would sit to say have your meal, the child would have pooped. So you
Yeah.
have to wash your hands, and you have to, like, whatever internally you're feeling, the helplessness, you have to keep it aside, and you have to tell yourself you are the adult. That child is depending on you to show up as an adult. So initially, or earlier, I used to say, when I did not know better, that, if there was a time machine, maybe I would not choose this life, because it was very difficult and it almost pushed me into not wanting to live. But now when I see Abir, sometimes when I have this, and I also say this, that I am, I think, one of those mothers who are enjoying their children's company more as they're growing up.
Hmm.
Even though I had like really cute, like, looking children, like, people used to take pictures with Abir in the mall, and I used to be like, "Ye kyun kar rahe hain? What is wrong with them?" But he used to look like a really chubby, a cute looking kid. But but I am enjoying them more now. Uh,
Yeah.
because I think, also because as a person, I'm also growing up with them, and I'm also sort of realizing how to be around my children without just getting eaten up by. So yeah, so if I have to tell my old self, I think I would say, brace yourself. You have no idea what's coming your way. Yeah, because I also don't see a life without my children, and I also do not know what would I do with myself, and
Yeah.
and all that all this difficulty that came my way, it also gave me a edge over many things. Now
Yeah.
I feel anything that can come my way, up ye kar liya, so there's nothing that I can't do.
Yeah.
Like, so they prepared me for the world. I
Wow.
think I would have been a sprinter, but they made me a marathon runner. I can go on and on running because of my children, because of my two boys, because my husband did not make my life difficult at all. Touch wood, yeah. He was this really, really lovely. He's this lovely person to be around. But my children sort of, prepared me for the marathon that life is,
Yeah.
and now I can run on and on and on.
How wonderful is that? And my last question to you, Sargam, if there is one message or insight that you'd like to leave with our listeners that encapsulates your parenting journey or philosophy, what would that be?
I think I would have to say that, take help, uh, or probably have children when you can take or have help. Of
Yeah.
course, when you have help, be very, very mindful of, like, who are the people around you, have all the measures in check, but
Yeah.
then do take out time. If it's a woman, like, who's going to be taking the load more, which is mostly the case, um, do take out some time for something for yourself, like something that I could not do initially, because uh, yeah, because the situation was, I was completely unaware that how work was so important. And I would also say, do not take a break from work, no matter how difficult it feels to juggle, no matter how many guilt pangs you feel. Personally, for people like me, that stimulation is what also makes us better mothers,
Right.
or better parents to our children. So you could probably decide to have children when you feel that you will not after a break, short break, you can of course come back on your feet,
Yeah.
so that's very important. Work is something that is very, very important. It doesn't have to be big work. Like, I'm not saying that, go out there, be a corporate giant and stuff like that. No, 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 no. All I mean is that something where you can also exist without your, like, without, yeah, your children, or do something for just yourself.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
very, very important. Something that I've learned the hard way. And now I've started working after a good break of 12 years from work, but
Wow.
always learning to work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that frustration doesn't come into your parenting style, or to your, because I see that struggle, uh,
Yeah.
in women around me, who are trying to find, uh, without realizing they're trying to find their own path, like,
Right.
so yeah, that's what I would like to.
Thank you. Thank you, Sargam. Thank you so much for opening your heart and sharing your story with us today. It's been such a meaningful conversation. I know I am taking back so much, and I know our listeners will do so too. And thank you for sharing your story. I'm just so, so, so thankful to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Neha. I just thought that, I hope people, even if one person sort of, also, I think the reason I wanted to share everything was like, if even if there is one person who feels less alone, I would, I feel my job's done. Like,
Yeah.
because that loneliness, that also isolation that you feel when you are a special needs parent, needs to go away. So, when someone else who would be listening to this, if they are going through a tough time, they can take it from me that it becomes okay. Like, at some point in time, you just have to be like perseverance, and then, at some point, it's going to get better and better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for spending your time with us. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who might find it helpful. Leave us a review and don't forget to subscribe to Parenthood. Until next time, take care and be well.